listening to the Astral Hour. I'm your host, Astral Meadow. Join me as we take a glimpse into the mysterious. Welcome, everyone. Today, I'm joined with my friend Amanda Walley. She is an angelic healer, certified QHM practitioner, and leader of Light on Earth at this time. Amanda helps people activate their own inner guardian and fierce inner strength and is an empowerment guide for the divine feminine. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be in this space with
Yeah.
you and with your listeners.
Yeah, I just love your energy so much. I know our audience is just going to love you too. So
Well,
I'm
thank you. Happy to share all the love and light.
yes, you're such a beam of light for all of the people that get to experience you. And it's just so beautiful watching you. And I've been following your YouTube channel and stuff. So I find it so inspiring and I'll be watching you and it's like I'll start to feel something that day and then I'll watch one of your videos. I'm like, she's tuned into it too. So I'm like, I feel like you channel this collective thing. And it
Yeah.
always makes me feel so supported that I'm like, okay, I'm not alone. She's also feeling that wave today. So,
Yeah, and I love being able to do that and provide that for all of us. It's not just for like those of you listening, it's also for me and for my circle and the people near and around me. We're all moving through these massive collective energies, which can be a lot in your face, like
mm,
as you're going through it. And you're really witnessing what needs to release. So I love being able to support that, being able to support the collective movement because the collective goes through so much together. And then when you're like a light worker or a star seed or a way shower, just this being of light on this planet at this time here to serve and to move with all that is moving.
hmm
It is nice to know you are not alone and you're not alone. If you're listening, you are not alone. We are here in this with you and we are all activating our light. And sometimes the movement can be a lot, but there are lots of supportive tools. And that's a lot of what I am here to do. Part of the mission is to give people that support as we move through these waves of light upgrades, light encoded energy frequency healing that is moving through not just us, but the sun, the earth, all of it. All of us are going through this ascension rising.
hmm Right. That's something that I became really aware of when I was studying astrology is the planets are also going through their own initiations. And as we go through these ascensions, because we're all like one being, we actually help the planets and they help us. So it's like we work together through these different upgrades and levels. And it's quite a beautiful symbiotic relationship when you can really see how it is all interconnected. And so I love that. Could you share just a little bit of background on yourself and your spiritual journey for us?
Yeah, so I am an energy healer. I work a lot with quantum healing. Some people call it hypnosis. I don't like to get hung up on that word because I don't necessarily take my clients into a trance state, but I do guide them through a relaxation and take them on a meditative journey. And on that journey, we're able to either get assistance from their guides, downloads, light upgrades. So much can happen. We can release any blockages, negative beliefs, connect you with your guides in a stronger way so that when you step away from the session, you're able to create practices on your own for connecting with spirit, activating your own psychic gifts, or just healing what needs to be healed. So much can happen in these sessions. So I don't like to get hung up on the word hypnosis. I use quantum healing methods, which is created by my mentor and teacher, Harry Kroner. And I highly recommend people look into him and even learning this method for themselves because it is such a beautiful healing modality that I'm so glad that I get to share. But on my spiritual journey, so I didn't start out as an energy healer. In fact, I was a school teacher. I was very hooked up into the matrix or like consumed by the matrix. I did all the things I felt I needed to do, went to school, college, got the degrees, got a master's degree, was working in the school system as a special education teacher. And it was really difficult for me to be locked into this like 9 to 5 job that was very draining. Not because of the students that I served. I loved the students that I served. I loved being with them and creating an environment of joy, of nervous system regulation, and all of these things. It was the school system itself, the lack of support, the lack of accountability, the lack of meeting my needs as the space holder for these beautiful children, and the lack of the school system providing for those children what they needed, all of it. It's very difficult to be in a system. And I think I had the mindset of, oh, I'm going to go into that system and I'm going to be the change the world needs. But these systems, they've got to come down. It's not about like transforming them from within. That's like maybe an old way of thinking, an old way of being within the matrix. Like I think that predates like 2012. That's like the way light workers served was like going within and transforming. And yes, there is some of that that does still go on, but I really think a lot of these systems are being called to be torn down to actually fail because they have failed us in a major way. And we're going to create a more conscious way of educating our children, a more conscious way of working in this world, and how we're here to serve and to thrive back into communities where you no longer need to be like these separate little entities just worried about our little pile of resources, but how do we create resources together? So I was working in the school system and I was going through a terrible soul death. Like I had had spiritual experiences before. I was even a yoga teacher at this point, but I wasn't practicing yoga. I was so disconnected from myself. And I was just oppressed and lost and in a very dark space that I could not see the light. I could not see myself crawling out of. And I felt so disempowered. I was in a relationship too that was just compounding all these issues where I felt smothered. And that's not to speak ill of this person, but it's to say I felt like I couldn't move. Like my back was to the wall and there was nothing I could do. I was so disempowered as a feminine person. I felt like I couldn't do anything. I was just stuck and trapped. And I had this near death experience kind of thing happen to me. It wasn't a near death experience, but it was something like it. And on that night that it happened, I saw angels. And the angels were with me and they helped me through this difficult moment. It was what I would call my tower moment, my moment of like, I have got to do something different than what I have been doing because I deserve more than this. Like, I can create my reality in a much clearer way. And so, after I quit that job I had been in, I started looking into angels. I started reconnecting with soul family. So, I was connected with a healer who is amazing. And she taught me Reiki. She taught me how to connect with my guides, all of this. And I started going through my ascension rising of like, oh, I can release these old aspects of self that I can see myself and recreate myself through a new lens. But I did still have my moments of disempowerment. I went to work at a different job, a different teaching job. I found myself back in the same system because I was scared. I was scared about money. I was like, how am I going to how am I going to pay my bills and all of that? So I went back into the school system and found myself in that same cycle, that same place. And my higher self kept saying to me, she kept saying, this ends when you decide it's time for it to end. And I kept hearing that message. And eventually, through doing work on myself, through doing the quantum healing, the Reiki, sitting with myself, sitting in the discomfort, really allowing the light upgrades to lift me up, doing all of that work, the beautiful practices on myself. I quit that job. I was like, okay, it's time to take the leap. I quit that job and then just went full into the unknown. I was like, I don't know what's going to happen next. And I was led to go to massage school, which I am still in massage school, and open my healing arts business. And life is moving into that place of alignment. I was able to shed that relationship that felt so constraining to me because that was what was right for me. Now, there are some relationships where there's an opportunity for harmony of resolution that you can work out whatever the problem was. But for me, my alignment, and we always have to listen to our own heart and be our own greatest guide and decision maker. For me, releasing the relationship was needed. And as soon as I did that, I was reconnected with my twin flame, which that came as a beautiful surprise that I did not anticipate happening. So now there's this whole twin flame unfolding and activation, and my life is moving into this space of flow where I am empowered to be all that I am, that I can create the life of my dreams. And that's who I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve women, the divine feminine, those of you that you feel so trapped and constrained in your circumstances and you want to shift them, you want to move them, but you don't know how to move. That in our healing sessions and the healing sessions I hold for you, we can look at those beliefs that are holding you where you are, and we can work with your guides and receive the wisdom on how to move this, whether that means bringing harmony into all the spaces you find yourself in, or maybe it's time to break down the wall, destroy it all, and create something even more. Rewild that divine feminine essence that you are. And I speak on all of this to say that, I've known myself as disempowered, but I've also known myself to step out of that and re-empower myself. And that is, if it's possible for me, it is most certainly possible for you too.
Yeah, I really appreciate that you share how you kind of got out and then went back in because I think that that happens to a lot of people and they end up judging themselves pretty harshly. But whether it's a job or a relationship, it's kind of normal to go back to what you know, right? To what's familiar, to what's comfortable. And so, although maybe that's not what we could have done, like our higher self would have wanted, sometimes going back in after you've had that taste of freedom, the next time you're like, oh, okay, now I remember. Like, I remember why this isn't my path anymore. But I love that you just allowed yourself to just step into that next phase after that versus just getting trapped. And it is hard. It's so hard to not get trapped in what's familiar. I think
Mhm.
that's where the spiritual coaching and guidance and assistance helps the most
Mhm.
because the path that we are taking, like we've never done it, so we don't actually know what it's going to look like. And I think that's where sometimes we get afraid and the fear will limit us
Mhm.
um, from some of the potentials of that path. And so when you're working with someone, it kind of helps coach you of like, this is a part of it. The tower moment is a part of it. Keep focusing on what you want. Keep thinking about your next move or really being present in this moment and feeling, all the emotions right now because they have their own lessons as you're going through the path. So I really love it because you're like a living example of how that might play out and how can get a little messy sometimes, but it's worth it. It's worth the work that you put in because once you finally get over some of those hills, it is more like smooth sailing. it's just
Mhm.
you have to get out of that familiar territory sometimes. So,
And it's okay to feel like you're a mess. And
right.
it's okay to know that you're in a circumstance that when you're in it, you can feel into that space of like, I know I'm going to eventually get myself out of this one way or another. But it can feel like you're like in two worlds. Like I'm
Absolutely.
in here, but I know I'm going there.
Mm-hmm.
Like that can be so uncomfortable. And what helped me so much is to remember that there is divine grace available to you. And that's where the angelic kingdom has always come in for me. That even when I was like, what am I going to do? Like, oh my gosh, I feel so stuck. I would just be really honest with my angels. I would be like, angels, look, I feel horrible right now. I feel so stuck. I know this is lowering my frequency. Can you please clear that for me? And they will, and they do. So just
Mm-hmm.
setting that intention to like have divine grace move through you. And then also asking for what you need, like angels, please show me what I need to do next. Please allow the helpful people, the helpful circumstances to come forward in my awareness, and this will show me what I need to do. So please send that. I am all for the angelic intervention. Please help me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you. I love you. I love you. So that has always helped me. Anytime I have said prayers to the angels, they have never let me down. It might not have come through like as immediately as I thought, but it always did come through when it was needed and when it was in the highest light for me. It
Right.
always worked out. And sometimes you need to hear that when you're in that stuck place that it will work out for you. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it's the waiting, the sitting, the learning through the experience that feels painful, that you're literally like shifting all this energy you might not be able to see or even sense, but it is like moving through you and exiting.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever you're ready, you're going
Right.
to evolve into the beautiful being you were always meant to be.
Right. I love that you work with the angels. And I think some people we just kind of forget that we have that possibility, and that they are here to be of service to humanity. I mean, like that's their job and they signed up for that and it is like a pleasure. And so I think sometimes we're like, oh, we don't want to disturb the angels. And I get to that sometimes. I'm like, oh no, I need help again. And I literally have to tell myself, like, it's okay that you need help again. Like you're a human, you're in a physical body. It's hard here. And
Mhm.
these beings, like that's what they do. And so it's absolutely it doesn't matter what time of day it is. It doesn't matter that you've called upon them 3 times in one day. They want to be able to help you, but there is this thing where you have to ask. I mean, there are situations like emergencies where they sometimes will
Mhm.
intervene. Um, which I feel like somehow it's like your higher self's the one that's connecting versus like your conscious self. But
Mhm.
they really can help us out in so many ways. And I was just blown away like when I started going into Akashic Records because the angels were just starting to come forward and like giving me their name and like they would be the guide. And so I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, really? This is so incredible, because I didn't even think about tapping into the angels really until they started just showing up in the records. So I really love that you've been working with them, and I think it is really cool to bring this forward that anyone can do this and lean into that wisdom that's just there for us. And a lot of us that have gotten through some of these difficult moments, we didn't necessarily do it alone. And I don't know what I would have done without having my guides. Like there was moments where I absolutely could not see any kind of light at the end of the tunnel. I was in the underworld. It was dark. I was terrified. And had I not had the guidance that was just coaching me to hang on and like sort of reassuring and promising me that that darkness will end, that's what got me through it. And it's absolutely okay that you need, that assistance in those dark moments. Like I feel like sometimes we feel isolated and it's because we've forgotten that we have this connection to God, that we have this connection to all of these guides are there. It's just a matter of tuning into those frequencies, and knowing when to ask. So,
Yeah,
um,
and you don't have to do this journey on your own. I think we're conditioned in our society that you you've got to do it on your own, or you're not good enough, or you're unworthy, or whatever the story you've been told over and over again is. But you don't have to be alone, and that the angels, it is their greatest joy and love of their life to shine their light on you. They love watching your unfolding. They love sprinkling that light on you and watching like all that's dark, all the cords release. Like your journey, your spiritual unfolding is beautiful to witness in the highest heavens. They're all looking down on you like, wow, look at how beautiful her rising and shifting process is. And then I wanted to speak on what you were saying about the underworld, because that I think is part of like the divine feminine awakening, because that's a lot of what has is happening since 2020 and maybe 2012, like since all these strong light activations have moved through our planet, is that you start to be aware of the way the feminine has been repressed. And it's subtle. It can be subtle, or at first it was subtle. Like maybe, your boyfriend talks down to you in a certain way that's like covert. Like maybe you always allowed that him to like speak over you or to make you feel shame, and you would just allow it and not speak up for yourself. And that was just normal in our society. But then as these light codes come in and that pattern happens and it's like in your face and you witness it and you're like, see, you're watching yourself respond in the way you always have, which is like, I'm going to like protect myself and not speak up to him. Oh, like that reaction. But when the light codes come in, you're aware of it, you're responding the same way, but in your mind, you're like, something's not right here. Like, he shouldn't be speaking to me this way. And so you like sit with that, you observe that until that moment when you're ready to go, I don't like when you speak to me like that, and I am requiring you to no longer do that. And that is like the underworld for the divine feminine. You know yourself in these states of being repressed, and these ways where you are allowing the distorted masculine to activate you, which is to say, he is suppressing you, you have allowed it, but that's like an energetic agreement. Like you go into these soul contracts with people for them to treat you that way so that you can begin going, wait, no, I'm here to be all that I am. I'm here to stand in my light. And it's like this initiation for the divine feminine. You know yourself as the maiden, the little girl, and through the darkness that is surrounding you, and you begin to face it with courage and bravery, like with a sword in your hand and a dragon behind you, like your dragon guardian. And you face that darkness and you show your power and you stand in your power and you become more and more sovereign and free, and you let yourself be free, and you continue doing that, and pretty soon you're just like lifting right on out of that underworld
Mhm.
and believing in yourself, or believing in yourself again, and reaffirming, I am this beautiful goddess being, and there is nothing in this world that could hold me back or repress me, because I will not allow it to be so.
Right. For me personally, my toxic relationship that I got out of, I was in one for years. I mean, it was absolutely devastating for me. I absolutely can see now looking back why it was necessary, because he kept challenging me. And there was a moment where I finally felt like all of the parts of me integrated, and I did, realize I can stand up for myself. I actually do have the power, but it
Mhm.
was like he was gonna keep messing with me until I finally did it. And so like I can actually now look back with gratitude for the experience, even though, it took a little bit of time, in therapy before I got to that point. But it's like it was so necessary. And, I used to talk about myself like in this fragmented way of like, oh, well, that's my Lilith, or that's my Venus. And because in our chart we have all these pieces, but it was like I couldn't allow them to merge and become like this one being. It's like
Right.
the sexual aspect of me is over here, and then the dainty like maiden beautiful girl. It's like, but what if like all of it is you? Like what if it's all a part of you and you don't have to cut it all up into pieces and only access this, when no one's watching or whatever. But it like took me years to fully integrate all of the aspects as a divine feminine within me. So now I feel like, the maiden mother crone, it's like all throughout my timeline, it's just like one now. But that was a lot of work to get to that point. And it did take, these relationships challenge us. And I think that sometimes we walk away and sometimes we stay, like you were saying, but we are always learning, and I think if you're being challenged, then maybe it's because you need to stand up for yourself, or maybe you need to say no more. And that is what the whole lesson was or is, and so it's hard when you're in it to not feel like you're being picked on, but it's like, no, I always had the power, this whole time. Like who knew? But I do think it's been a societal thing because we have been taught to be tame. And
Mhm.
just throughout like history, burning of the witches, and God forbid like you're, a woman that's wise, because then you would be a threat. And so I think it's like there was like this collective fear where we were scared to be too smart or too beautiful or, too sexual or whatever, for fear of being like burned alive. And I think many of us are finally like, it's safe to come out. So I love that you are just this great representative of that, because I think the more we step out, those of us who went through these phases, it's like it helps other women see, okay, it's not scary. I'm not gonna get, burned alive for speaking my mind, for living my truth. I'm allowed to be a woman. I'm allowed to, use my voice. I'm allowed to stand up for myself. So I really love that you help people experience stuff like that and coach them
Mhm.
through that.
Mhm. And it's all a sacred reclaiming of all that you are. And even the lower experiences, or the experiences that feel really negative to you while you're in them, that is your sacred reclaiming. You're calling all these parts of you back to you so that you can hold them and wield them to be the divine love that this world needs. We need mothers, we need caregivers. Not that you have to be a mother to children unless that's what you want to do, but a mother to the world, a mother to every being that you encountered through your divine feminine grace and wisdom, that is your gift and your offering. And it's safe for you to be that and to share that. And yeah, sharing it can be a process of like giving yourself permission. That's what all of this is we often as women, or as people in general, even the divine masculine, I'm sure goes through this, where we feel like we need some kind of external permission, like someone from the outside to say, it's okay for you to be this. It's okay for you to share your wisdom. But that external validation probably is not necessarily going to come at first, that the
Hmm.
most important validation is the validation you are giving yourself and allowing yourself. I allow myself to be all that I am. And that's the most important thing. And you might not always get a good reaction from the outside. You might have people that are like, whoa, you're weird. And that's okay. They can think you're weird. That's fine. That's for them to like figure out. Sometimes when we're activating our power, it's going to rub people a certain way because they are on their own journey and their own path, figuring out how to also be empowered.
Right. I definitely lost, or I don't want to say lost because it's not like this negative thing happened between me and a lot of the people I knew around the time. But when I stepped away from that toxic relationship, even though a lot of those people watched this person verbally abuse me and would even tell me, you need to get out of this. When I walked away, they completely stopped talking to me. Like they stayed in that
Mhm.
vibration. Like they continued that same path. They didn't evolve. And it's interesting because they really helped me in those moments to get the courage to really do it, but then they stayed. And then I lost them as a friend basically because I was like, that sucks, but it's like it's okay. There was a lot of points where I did feel alone, where I had to do this like clearing thing because all of those people were associated either with my past or I met them through, like drinking or, like the restaurant industry. It was just not, I was headed towards a different vibration. And so there was a releasing, like I stopped fitting in, I, you know. Um, so that was really hard to be alone. Like I didn't necessarily like that phase of it, but I'm really glad I just allowed everything to fall off that was meant to because
Mhm.
it made room. Like, had I kept trying to nurture these dead relationships, I wouldn't have had the space when I would meet these other people that actually did resonate with me and like where I was headed. And when I met them, I was like, oh, yes, I do. Please, I would love to have a friend. I was so open to it. And I could be like a really good friend because I had all this energy, from doing all the work and just longing for companionship. And so the clearing was absolutely necessary before I started really connecting to like my soul family, the ones that have a similar mission, the ones that
Mhm.
recognized me from, other lifetimes and things like that. They finally started showing up. And so, but I do think we all go through kind of an isolation phase where it's like we miss the people that we grew up with or the people that used to be that safe space as we move beyond that. But it's absolutely like okay to outgrow people as you really step into your life's purpose. So sometimes these relationships are meant to just activate something,
Mhm.
or they're just meant to give you that one little piece of wisdom. And the love that I still have for some of those people that I don't see anymore, it keeps that still alive to a certain extent. And I'll long for them. I'll be like, oh, I wish I could just tell them, that I'm thinking about them, but I can't. It's like we're on a different timeline, but the love keeps us like connected where I can still be like, thank you for giving me that little
Mhm.
push. So,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
we talked a little bit about the divine feminine, which leads me into wanting to talk to you about like the role of anger in our empowerment, which I suppose has to do with the masculine and feminine as we're stepping into our power. Sometimes that anger that's been suppressed wants to come out. So could you kind of share with us that ways that you work with people when they're in that phase of their journey?
Yeah, so while we are activating our divine feminine essence, at times we will go through this little upgrade of our divine masculine essence because in each of us we have the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And I'd say, like, when you're going on that empowerment journey, you've known yourself as disempowered, you do start to feel the anger, like you're mad at all the ways that you've been treated, and maybe for a long time, you didn't allow yourself to get angry. You were told, like, you can't be angry. Like, you're just supposed to be loving and compassionate to everybody else. And so, when you start seeing the truth and allowing yourself to see what the truth is and allowing yourself to be your own inner guardian, your own inner support, anger will come up. And this anger is like this fiery warrior that's like, I am here to protect you. I got you, sis. Like, we're
Hmm.
going to take care of this stuff. And that's why that anger comes up. It's not for us to hold on to or to like seek vengeance or to harm others, but it's like this divine masculine component of us that's here to hold us until a divine masculine comes along that will do that for us or with us through our experience, but it's so that we start doing that for ourselves. You activate it through you, and you tell the masculines in your life how they need to be treating you. Otherwise, they're gonna meet this fierce divine masculine that you hold within your own essence. You're gonna look right at the distorted masculine, and you're gonna say, "Not today, bro." Like that is not okay anymore. So the role of anger is really to show us where we want to be loved, how we want to be loved, how we deserve to be treated, and knowing it's okay for that to arise through you, and that we can sit with our anger, we can sit with our grief, we can allow it to move, we can bring the heart and brain into coherence. So I do a lot of that brain, heart coherence, allowing the heart to alchemize that feeling of anger because we don't want to keep anger stored in our liver. That's where we'll feel it is in the liver. It's not good for the liver to hold on to that. So we have to transmute process, bring it into the heart. There's also quantum healing techniques we can use, like using the violet flame to come into the liver or any other space that's experiencing anger to transmute it. Also, asking Gaia, this energy of the Divine Mother, to hold what we feel we cannot hold anymore, or asking, hey, Gaia, can you please help me hold this density, this heaviness, this anger until I am able to hold this with light? Please show me how to hold it with light. I'm here to learn and to be encouraged to hold all my experiences. And one message I got from Gaia when I was moving through this myself is she was like, do you think the Divine Mother does not also feel the pain of every single one of her children? And how does she endure it? How does she hold all of it with great love? It is only with great love that she can wield all these emotions and bring them into the true octave and resonance of love, which is available to all of you. So, no matter what your emotions are coming up, they're all here to teach you. They're all here to help you activate that empowered, strong, fierce, divine, feminine that you are. But we can also lean on the support of Earth, which is this space and place which we have found ourselves in. We're here to plug into Earth to bring those divine downloads down to the Earth,
Mm,
be the healing force in this world.
right. That's beautiful. I was kind of meditating on this because I've talked about I feel like you probably heard me talk about how they've like our society has sort of caused us to like tame our Mars a little too much, and like keep our warrior energy in. And it's like we've been taught that expressing anger or speaking up to authority or whatever is wrong or something. And so I have been trying to bring awareness around that Mars is in our charts for a reason, and it is absolutely an energy we can work with, and that suppressing it can be toxic to us because it like keeps it in when really it's supposed to be expressed. It doesn't mean you have to fire off and be like a bully or mean to someone, but it is there for a reason. And I was thinking about in medical astrology, Mars is associated with inflammation. And
Mm.
if you think about what did the doctors tell you to do? Take an anti-inflammatory. Don't work through it. Don't ask yourself why the inflammation's there. Just take an anti-inflammatory, suppress it, keep it down. And I've been studying homeopathy and I'm like, I'm bumping into this even in this field. And I'm like, oh wow, we've been suppressing the
Mm-hmm.
Mars and it's actually causing inflammation. And then guess what happens? An immune response, autoimmune disease, all of these things. And it's absolutely necessary, to let the anger out. And I recently went through a very challenging experience after my mom's passing. It was very bad. I tried to lean straight into forgiving her. Like as soon as it was over, I was like saying the forgiveness prayer. I was like, it's fine. I love her. I forgive her. But then the other day at the 1 year anniversary, I just like had a breakdown and I just got pissed. And my husband was just like holding space for me. And I just started like screaming and like I was so mad at like all of the things that I missed out on and these experiences that I never got to have and the mother that I never had. And then it was weird because I thought I had forgiven her, but it wasn't until I had this absolute ridiculous outburst of anger that I finally settled down. And then I was like, I think I'm truly ready to forgive her now. And I
Mm,
couldn't just automatically forgive her just because that was like what the saintly version of me wanted to do. But it was absolutely necessary for me to yell and scream and be like, this isn't fair first and then say, okay, it's not fair, but I
mhm,
can forgive you now that I finally let that out. And I kept having these like medical issues. And I absolutely know that it was because I kept convincing myself that I had moved on when I really, my body hadn't. I hadn't expressed the anger, like it needed to come out in some way. And so I feel like that was me trying to suppress my Mars because I was trying to be love. I was trying to just go straight into that. And
mhm,
you have to give that an outlet, and whether that's just going out and like chopping wood and like really like getting the body needs to be a part of it. And so sometimes that can be like a heavy workout or going for a run or something like that as you're going through the mental experience. But you have to allow that. You can't just take the anti-inflammatory. It's not going to work. It stores it deeper into the tissues. So it's just something I've been thinking about with exploring anger and how sometimes anger can be like a holy experience in itself. Even Jesus, is like the flipping the tables. You always see that, and I think that that's such a good example that there can be anger that is just.
mhm,
And it's not all just toxic. It's not all just those of us who have been bullied and things like that. I think it's even harder for us to express anger because, like, we don't want to be like those people that abused us. So we're like, oh, can't say that. I might hurt someone's feelings. But it's like you can express anger in a very healthy way. And but we haven't been taught that. And I think that's where we're kind of having to experiment and like how can we speak up but not intentionally hurt someone, And that's where I feel like the therapy and having other people to sort of help coach you of like how can I defend myself or put up boundaries without absolutely ruining all of my relationships. But there
mhm,
there is a way, that you can do that. And sometimes like you said, some relationships you just have to stop. Like they've expired. But
mhm,
I feel like if you can't express your anger, then there's a problem. And like that's the red flag you need to be working on in that moment, with that particular person. Why do I feel scared to express, when I'm disappointed or upset? Like, let's talk about that. So I feel like anger gives us something to explore and work with.
mhm. And a lot of that is like the somatic awareness we can cultivate with ourselves. And that's another thing I do in sessions with people is like a somatic healing, a somatic quantum journey where we can become aware of, okay, what body part is tense right now? Where are you feeling pain? And we might automatically think, oh, it's just a physical pain, like I'm maybe sitting too long at work or whatever it is. But there's usually a reason why that physical pain has been triggered in you. And then going into that space, bringing breath, connecting with the body part, placing our hands on it and asking, what is this really about? Why am I feeling this? What does this have to teach me? And knowing ourselves in this deep way, because like you were saying, we've got to get it moving again. Like it doesn't need to stay stuck inside of you. It wants to move. Like it needs some kind of movement, whether that's crying or screaming or just allowing yourself to feel what it is that you actually feel without like telling yourself some kind of lie. Because you would rather feel this other way. So you're going to lie to yourself and say that you feel that other way. But really honoring, that's another sacred, wild, feminine thing that we're all reclaiming now is like, it's okay to honor myself no matter what phase or expression I'm in, and then empowering ourselves to share that with others.
Mhm.
And I always tell people if you need to express something, if you need to express your anger, do that through the filter that is your heart.
Right.
That you can have a serious conversation with someone about how you're feeling from the heart space.
Mm.
Like, hey, I'm not like trying to cause problems with us, but when you do that to me, this is how I am feeling. And I'm telling you that it's not okay for me to feel this way. I want to work this out and coming at it from that place. And then if the person is not receptive, then we're going to need to look at, okay, what boundaries need to be put in place? Can this person stay in my life and I still have joy? Because joy is what we're here for, and bringing the joy, the light back into all relationships and spaces we find ourselves in.
Right. For sure. Um, so what are some ways that we can work with our intuition, and that our intuition supports us when we're stuck, trapped, feeling suppressed? What are some ways that we can tap into the intuition in those experiences?
So your intuition is always whispering to you. You always hear it. And in the very beginning, you won't know that you're hearing it because you're trying to block it out because you don't like what it's saying. So it's always that little if you feel unsettled in your spirit, that is your intuition telling you something is wrong. And we get used to being in that space of, I am unsettled in my spirit. This is my normal mode. But if you feel unsettled, if you feel like something's wrong, if you feel like you're kind of like crawling out of your skin within your own life and day to day experience, that is your intuition shaking, trying to shake you awake to say, you need to pay attention. You need to ask yourself, why do I feel so unsettled? So beginning to recognize how you're feeling and knowing that feeling state is your intuition, and then start listening and giving permission to listen. I know for me, I had to give myself lots of permission because when I knew I needed to leave my relationship, I was like, I don't want to hear that. That's too
Hmm.
much change for me. Like, that's crazy. It's not crazy, but learning to, okay, I'm trying to block this out. Maybe I need to take that barrier down and just allow myself, just for myself, to hear what the message is. Like
Hmm.
giving yourself the permission to hear what your inner voice is saying. And it is a practice that you need to show up to every day, like sitting with your heart and asking, okay, why am I unsettled? What is wrong? Okay, I feel uncomfortable in this relationship. Why am I uncomfortable? What is making me uncomfortable? Okay, that's making me uncomfortable. Can I shift that? Can I talk to my partner and we change our dynamics? Have we tried to do that again and again and again and it just never ever like gets resolved? Do I need to leave the relationship? Asking your body, how would it feel if I left this relationship? How would it feel if I left this job? And your body is going to have a response to that question. I would encourage everyone listening, if you are in those spaces and places where you feel stuck, ask yourself that question. Dear body, how would it feel to you if I left the relationship? And if your body relaxes, like if it just goes, well, that's your answer. That's your intuition speaking to you. And the more that you listen, the more that you follow through with what your intuition is asking of you. And sometimes it's asking a lot. It's asking you to surrender everything that you have. But when you do that, when you follow through with the listening, it gets easier. Like you'll be able to like tune into it so quick. You'll know how you feel.
I love that. I've had a couple people ask their records, like, what are some ways I can tap into my intuition more or something like that. And I think it's always interesting because they sort of just say that your intuition's already um
Mhm.
there and it like it's asking you or it's like it's already guiding the person, but they're scared of the work that is going to come with the next stage. But they can intuitively feel that it's coming, but then they block themselves off from that intuition because they're actually scared of the uncomfort that it might lead to, that period in between. And so they know, but then they block it because they don't want to have to make the choices or the changes. But the intuition is always active. Um, it's just like something about us is like blocking it because we're afraid. And
And
so then we,
we can clear those blocks
right.
too. I think that's important to remember is if you're afraid to listen to your intuition, you already know what to do. And that's hard to hear sometimes. You
Right.
already know what to do. But you do. It's just that it's a big leap from where you are now, but you can clear the fear. The
Hmm.
frequency of fear, the frequency of worry is here for you to bring it into love so that you no longer have to be afraid. You no longer have to stay stuck or live in fear. That these things can be cleared, that you can follow through with the inner voice. You can be empowered to try. It's also reestablishing a deep trust with yourself that you are looking out for your best interests, that you have love in mind for yourself and treating yourself well. And the more that you can also do the self-care practices like taking hot baths, taking that time for yourself, tending to your needs, doing all those things will help you be empowered to follow through in the listening because you have love for yourself. And when you love yourself, you do what you need to do
Hmm.
for that highest love, that highest light that you're here to gift yourself and to gift all others that you interact with.
Right. Absolutely. I do think when we're in that space of self-love, it's easier to receive any kind of message or guidance because we're just so open and we're comfortable and we're soft. And so if there is a choice we have to make, it's going to be less jarring when we're in that space of love because
Mm.
our guard is not up, and so I feel like that there's so much is just taking that down and then trusting. I mean, you say the word trust and it makes people feel uncomfortable,
Mm.
and I get that. It's hard to be trusting in this reality. I mean, there's so much you see the betrayal and the thievery and gaslighting and narcissists. I understand why it's scary. I get it, but at some point you have to at least trust yourself. You have to fall back onto maybe I can't trust my neighbor yet, but I can trust that I love myself enough to make this choice or to be a good guide for myself.
Mhm.
And there's so many possibilities now. This is something else that I've stumbled on is these different possibilities in the records. So there'll be guides that come through sometimes, and they're from the future,
Mhm.
and there'll be two different versions of you. And they'll say, okay, well, this is us when we stay, and this is us when we go. And it's so cool because they both have their unique wisdom in their own story. And it's like it shows me that no matter what path we take, we can learn lessons. There will be guidance, there will be different things. But we can also step into the highest path, the one where we find the most joy, the one that has the least resistance, the one that we fully step into our power and love. Like there's that path is always available, and that future version of us is there to help us connect to it. But it's just, I don't know, it's hard, because we feel so limited because we can't see beyond. But
Mhm.
it's been a really cool experience to get to tap into the the future version of you that has already cleared that path and
Mhm.
and like they can actually help you
Mhm.
get to that point. And when I was a kid, I used to have these visions of I'm pretty sure it was future me, but I didn't know who she was at the time, but she was like really beautiful and loving at that point, I couldn't possibly see it as me because I was just some dweeby, like little kid. But I think that like when I send love back to myself, that she was getting it. And I think that this is how it works, is like that future version of us is giving us little hunches or like messages. And sometimes the guidance is us. Like all the time when I'm in the records, if I ask who the guide is, it's like 10% of the time it'll be some weird version of me. And I don't know which part of the timeline it's on, but they have some message that could really benefit me. But a lot of times we're the guide.
You are. And the thing about guides and angels and all these multidimensional beings that are supporting us, they are you. We are all one. We all come
Right.
from source. So they are an aspect of you. They know what you need. That's why they're there. And I
Hmm.
also wanted to say on the future self meditation, or not meditation, but quantum, like Akashic records, healing. One of the most impactful things I did on my own self-discovery journey was a future self meditation where I met my future self. And it's not like I saw her, but I
Hmm.
could feel her energy. And she showed me her chakras, and then she beamed her chakras into mine. And I could feel that there were no blocks. I could feel how peaceful she was. And it was such a wild moment for me because at that time I had always had blocked chakras, especially like the solar plexus, the sacral, all those lower chakras were
Hmm.
so like, oh. And I, for the first time, felt the peace that she had within her, and she gave it to me. She was like, "We're going to let you download this because you're about to step into this version of yourself." And when I did that, everything started clicking, and I was like, "Oh, I can be this peaceful version of myself that it is within me." And that's also a session that I can do for my clients if that's something that you'd like. If you'd like to meet your future version of self, it might not show up the same way it showed up for me or the same way it showed up for you. It'll show up exactly in the way that you need to, because that's what our guides are here to do. They know us, our
Hmm.
unique signature, and they're always going to give us what is in our highest light, what is for our highest timeline.
Right. And I feel like knowing that can take away some of the fear of doing some of this work because I think some people think, oh, I'm not ready for it. But your soul, like your higher self, it knows where you're at and it's
Hmm.
not going to demand something from you that you can't handle. And so I love that you kind of made that clear because I do think that that's one of the big fears is that they're absolutely scared that it's going to be jarring or shocking. And I'm like, when you work with these loving energies, it's hard to understand it if you've never been in that loving field, but it really is gentle. It really is like the message that you need to hear. And so just because the person that's leading it has taken certain, initiations or whatever, you're on your path. And so your guides know exactly where to meet you and what step you're on and where you're headed. And so it's such a personal
Hmm.
experience, you know?
And there's different layers to it, I'll say, because I'm not going to like, if I'm meeting with a client for the first time and they don't resonate with like Starseed, I'm not going to take you to meet your galactic guides. I'm not going to do
Right.
that for our first session. Like, that's
Right.
not where you are. That's not what is needed on that day. But I am going to connect you with your spirit. We might
Mhm.
do a somatic healing and more so like an energy healing to see what shows up for you, what needs to be healed. And that progresses as you're ready. Like, and to your points, where your guides are never going to give you some activation you're not ready for. It's always going to be what you need, what is supportive to you on that day. And it's never too much. It's always the perfect dose of energetic medicine that you need in that moment.
Yeah, I love that. And that's so beautiful. I love all the work that you do. Um, I feel like we've covered quite a bit of it. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you specialize in and work with people?
So I do so many things. Like my website, if you look at my website, which is angelic.harmony.healing.com, what I'm offering on there is QHM, which is that's the quantum healing. Those are 1 hour sessions. I have Reiki energy healing sessions. Those are also an hour. And then there's BQH, Beyond Quantum Healing, which is past life regression. Those sessions are 3 hours long, but that's a very deep healing. But I do more than just those three things. I can cultivate a unique experience for whoever comes to me. I offer these mentorships where you sign up for a session package, so it's 6 sessions. So we would work 6 weeks in a row, meeting on Zoom 1 day per week for 6 weeks. And we can do anything. I can show you how to start opening up your third eye or like working with whatever your particular set of psychic gifts are, which for everyone they express differently. We can learn how to work with angels, like how to incorporate more angelic work in your day-to-day life, whatever it is you need. I'm also a yoga instructor, so if you want to learn intuitive movement, we can do that as well. There are so many things that I am happy to curate a unique experience for my clients based on whatever it is you're moving through at this time. So I'll make like it'll be like a plan for you, our
Mhm.
6 week plan. And each session we'll learn something else. We'll do something else together. But all of this is to support you in moving through up leveling to your next level of empowerment or spiritual awakening, whichever is here for you at this time.
I love that. And you're such a multifaceted healer. You've trained in all these different modalities, you've lived certain experiences and like so when someone's working with you, they are getting a lot of variety. And so it makes you, your own special package, like something that they might not be able to get just anywhere. And so it's really beautiful because it's very unique to you. And I'm just really grateful for people like you that follow their calling and do the work and then hold that space for others because I do think that many people are starting to awaken, whether it's just starting to awaken to the shadow of themselves or awaken to the higher frequencies or really ready to open the heart space. I do think that collectively we're all starting to feel it. And I think that the energetic work and the love and the coaching, all of it's going to become more and more relevant.
Mhm.
When I was in the records not too long ago, I received a message about energy work. And because someone was saying, well, everyone's a Reiki master now or something. And the records are kind of laughing about it because they were saying that in the future, we will need just as many energy workers as we have doctors right now. And so it's not like, oh, we have too many energy workers. Like there's millions, billions of people, right, that will eventually wake up and need this help. So
Mhm.
it's okay that there's like might be 50 Reiki masters in your town. That's great. That's great. There's probably more doctors than that in your town. So energy medicine is the medicine of the future.
It
And
is, yeah. Vibrational resonance is absolutely the way forward for health and wellness. Like that's going to
hmm
be in the future a very physical thing as well as on these spiritual energetic levels.
Right. And I feel like we're stepping into where science is going to continue to validate the experience of what we can feel, what we know
Mhm.
based on what we've actually had happen in our lives. I think that we're going to continue to be able to prove like it does benefit the heart health or the overall health of the body, even though it is something that's unseen. And maybe they're not just taking a bunch of medication, but like their ailment is now gone or they finally were able to get over that hump in therapy that was like just they were stuck on and it's because of the energy work. I think that your work will continue to just take off and like you're one of the way showers, like one of the first holding that space. But I really do believe that we are like collectively waking up one by one. And so,
We're all in this together. Yeah, we're all lifting and we're all a way shower. What I
mhm,
have to share with you is different than what anyone else has to share with you. And we all have our value and our place. And you always know when you're ready to work with a healer because you can just feel that little tug. And so always honor that little tug because you don't know, that might be like the process that gets you past your current struggle or difficulty. I know for me, when I listened to like when I needed to work with a healer, it always benefited me for my highest good. And the healers that I found myself connecting with, it as it turned out, they were soul family,
right,
which was beautiful to reconnect with soul family. So you never know, like if you're drawn to someone,
right.
they might be your soul family.
Absolutely. I am so grateful for the people that held my hand on the healing journey. It was the most valuable work. So, everyone's like, that money might be some kind of block. Oh, I don't have the money. And I'm like, absolutely, it was worth all of the money I spent. I
Oh,
never felt like somehow I was being manipulated or something. It's like, no, I felt called to work with them. I had these huge upgrades, and each one of the people that I worked with was a key part
mhm.
of my healing journey, and all of it was absolutely necessary. And I do a lot on my own. I'm a 12th houser, I retreat, I'm hermit, and I can do quite a bit. I'm a self-learner, but I absolutely needed help from others at specific points in the journey, and I couldn't have made it very far without having some support at different points. And so it's okay to reach out and connect with someone when you're in those moments where you're like, I keep doing the work, but I've hit a wall. And that wall might be where you need to reach your hand up. And the person that has already went through that can like lift you over the wall. And that's where we are. We are in this together. It's okay to need other people. So,
hmm And I still meet with my healers. Now, I don't work with them as frequently as I did in the beginning, but I still do like bi-monthly check-ins with those people that are healers to me, and I love it. It continues to be more fun because in the beginning, the work was heavier. I was
right.
like shedding and releasing a lot. But now when I go and meet with these healers, we're still doing healing and activations and upgrades, but it's got like more of a joyful frequency to it. So I say, there's nothing wrong with needing other people. I know for me, it was very helpful in me moving through the veils because I didn't know my psychic abilities. I didn't know I was a starseed, but when I would work with these people, I would have these instant rememberings and knowings. And I was like, this is
Hmm.
putting me on the path. And it just helped me lift and shift so much and continues to do so. It is such a great joy for me to connect with my healers. And I'm sure I will continue to find people I align with and continue doing my own work, just as I do with my clients. So we're all here to help each other, that even healers are doing their own healing work. Now,
Hmm.
I'm at a stage where I'm primarily doing this work for myself daily. Um,
Hmm.
and you'll get to that point. Like, I'm not here to like for you to have sessions with me forever. I'm here to get you to where you want to be. And that's what it's
Right.
all about.
Right. And I feel like as we unite it, if you think about like, I know you're in the South too, so the church congregation, there's a beauty to being able to have that church family. And I feel like we have our own version of that within this spiritual movement where we don't necessarily have the physical building, but we do have the congregation. It's just that some of us have to meet through Zoom or
Right. Yeah.
it's more of a one-on-one thing, but the community support actually is there. And one
Mhm.
of the most beautiful parts of the journey is all of the people that I have gotten to meet along the way. So,
Yeah, and I'm so thankful for the internet, Zoom, Instagram, all these great resources because I have met some of the most beautiful people in my life that I'm so grateful have dropped in through this technology.
yeah,
Mm.
same. I wouldn't be able to connect with probably half the people without the internet. And it's like the internet was just the thing that helped us to align with people that had that particular frequency. Um, and so it's such a beautiful tool when it's used properly. So I'm all for it. I think that meeting people on the internet is just fine, especially when, like me, I was raised in a really small southern town and I'm like the only weirdo from that
Right.
town.
Yes, I think that is something unique about being in the South is like you're usually like the one mystic in a given area. And if that's all you had, you were just going to be like the weird one.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have the internet to realize, oh, there are others like me, and it's okay to be like all that I am. And then
Yeah.
I see it in the southern region where I am, there are more alternative people popping up, but I think it's the influence of the internet, like just giving people
Yes.
that permission to be who they are. But I
Hmm.
also think it's nice for people who are southern and spiritual, like we are, like angels, energy healing, all this, to know, yeah, you're not alone. Even if you're the only person in your small town that believes in this, there's others like you. We've gone through these same experiences of being thought of as weird or whatever it is, that you're not alone,
Right.
that
Right.
you
And
can
it's
be.
your weirdness that make that's like your gift, right? It's
Mm.
because you're bringing in that more futuristic wisdom and so it appears weird, right? But in the age of Aquarius, right? This where we're headed, being the weirdo, it's because you're holding the frequency of the future. And so it doesn't make any sense to anyone at that time, but I feel like now more people have been awakening, and so there's more of us to where we don't necessarily feel like the outcast anymore.
Mm.
And we're like, oh, there are other weirdos, thank God.
I
You
am not
know?
alone.
Yes, yes. So, all right. Well, we're about to wrap up this episode. Could you just briefly go over all of the ways people can follow you, support your work, contact you?
Yes, so the way to book with me to see my offerings, angelic.harmonyhealing.com. That's my website. It also has an option for you to directly email me through there. But if for whatever reason you can't find that, you can always email me at angelichaharmonyhealing@gmail.com. I am very active on Instagram. I do lots of free content on Instagram, collective energy updates, some light language transmissions through my hands, that sort of thing. You can follow me at angelic underscore harmonies 111. And I'm also on YouTube under that same handle, or you can search Angelic Harmony Healing. I'll come up. There's lots of free quantum meditations. I just released for the month of February a 21-day meditation series. So if you're curious about working with me, but still like not sure, follow that meditation series, see what it's like. That's very similar to how sessions go. Although in session, you'll have a deeper, more immersive experience that's tailored to the unique individual that you are. But that's a good way to like kind of check it out and see. So those are all the ways you can connect with me. Please do follow me if this conversation we've had resonates with you. I would love to chat with you. You can come to my Instagram DMs, ask me questions. I am happy to answer questions. Don't feel like I'm unapproachable because I
Mhm.
love to support you in any way that I can.
Yes, and just following you is such a pleasure. You're always sharing this beautiful wisdom and I think that's one of the things I love about you is how approachable you are and how real and authentic you are and it just comes out. Like it's just as soon as I saw you, I just had that instant connection of like, yes, this girl's got it going. I need
Oh,
more of
thank
this.
you. Thank
So,
you. I love
yes.
that. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm very excited to share this with our listeners.
All right. Thank you for having me.
And thank you all for tuning in. Check us out next time on the Astral Hour.